I don't know. Oh, by the way, I'm rolling into the stick with that one. No, it's fine. I think we're good. Right. All right, we'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you all join me, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And can we have a roll call, please?
Richardson.
Here.
Awesome. Present. Ferguson.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Edley.
Here.
Walters.
Present.
And Leonard.
Here. Thank you. Next up is review for conflict of interest. Anyone have anything to declare? Okay, moving on to approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda of the Planning Commission, Tuesday, October 7th, 2025.
Thank you. Motion by Carl, seconded by Rhonda for approval of the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next up is public comment. Anybody have anything to talk about this evening? Okay. Moving on to correspondence. Claire, we have one thing on our desk. Looks like it came from the Watershed Center.
Yes, this was just, this is associated with the zoning amendment 7-25, and just wanted to make sure that you had that background information.
Any questions on correspondence? Okay, moving on to reports. Township Board, Mindy.
We had a special meeting a couple weeks ago with regards to the new sewer line. As most people know, the engineer's estimate for that was at $11 million, and it came in at $16 million. Again, this is a split with Acme Township, so we were working on acceptance of the bids because, as you know, we don't have any backup for the sewer line, and we already know that it has failed before, and we've really got to do something for that line. So we decided to move forward with it. And now we have to figure out funding, and the funding mechanisms that, we have in East Bay Township are different than what Acme can do. Of course, we have the funds in our account that we can pay cash, but that would make it so that other projects we'd have to bond for. And so we're trying to figure out what split do we do, how much do we bond for, how much do we pay in cash. We've committed to $1 million in cash right now, but how much more do we want to use? The thought process is that right now we're bonding with Acme Township so we can split all those fees associated with the bonding. If we do it on other projects later, all those fees would be directly on East Bay Township. So it's kind of a, how much is the right number? I think it's going to be an interesting conversation to figure out how much to bond for and how much to use in cash. So that's a pretty big discussion we're going to have coming up. I think we're doing it next month. Looking at Tracy. November, yeah.
Gotcha. Any development properties along that line?
I'm sure there are, but, and it goes into the city, of course. It goes from, it's got all the flow from Acme to
Right.
in East Bay going all the way in, and it's actually connecting, correct me if I'm wrong, Tracy, but there's a line coming from Garfield that is currently connected to our line before it goes into the plant. That connection is going to remain, and the new line is not going to have Garfield in it. However, they're putting the T in so that at some time later that Garfield can connect to this line. Is that correct, Tracy?
Yeah, it's only about 800 feet that Garfield has, and then They don't want to mess with their stuff right now, so they just want the ability, if they need it, if something breaks on their side, they can tap in.
So for the audience that can't hear because Tracy doesn't have a microphone, what Tracy just said was that there's about 800 feet of the Garfield line that overlaps the East Bay Acme line, and right now they don't want to do anything with it, but they want the ability to in the future if something comes up.
Gotcha. Any other questions? Okay, moving on to Paul with ZBA.
No meeting.
Okay, Claire with Planning and Zoning.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Just a quick reminder, we have our Beach District quarterly meeting and breakfast on October 9th. So if any planning commissioners are interested and available to attend, would love to have you join. It's at the Cherry Tree Inn this time. It's generally at Harbor Brook Hall. Don't go to Harbor Brook Hall. We're going to be at the Cherry Tree Inn. That's at 9 a.m. on Thursday. We're going to hear from our nonprofit partners, the Watershed Center, Tart Trails, and the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy about work that they're doing within the Beach District. And also provide an update on the Corridor Improvement Authority.
How long do those typically last?
We are doing about an hour. We started out a little bit longer program, but have found that business owners are looking for something a little shorter. So we'll wrap up by 10. The bylaws, just wanted to give a quick update. We're delaying those until the November meeting. I did make Paul's edit that he suggested, but we're had them go through legal review, and we're also looking to combine them with the public comment guidelines, which are currently under development. So we just want to make sure that those are consistent with one another. Those will come back to you in November. Wanted to just let you know the Airport Joint Zoning Board, which is a board that I've been serving on along with other planners from Acme Township, Peninsula, City of Traverse City, Garfield. We're working to develop basically a zoning ordinance that covers a 10-mile radius going out from the airport, and that's really to ensure that, airspace safety from a height perspective as well as a use perspective with future land uses. So we've been in the process of developing this zoning ordinance. We're going to have a draft zoning ordinance that will be basically there will be a presentation on that draft zoning ordinance. We're looking at that presentation to be on November 12th at noon. So that would be a public meeting. I'm going to send out more details, and I think that would be a great opportunity for the Planning Commission to attend, just to learn a little bit more about it. It's not going to impact you that much, but there's specific uses, and especially closer in, like 10 miles, generally not concerned about it, but the uses that are really close to the airport are going to have a little bit higher level of review, just to ensure there's no inconsistencies and impact to the air traffic.
Could you repeat the date of that meeting?
That meeting right now is scheduled for November 12th at noon at the airport. But I will make sure to send you, once I get that from the airport, I'll send you the packet and information for that. Also, last thing that I was just going to mention is we have been throwing around a possibility of moving our meeting times a little bit earlier, say 5:30, 6 o'clock. So just wanted to see if that was something that the Planning Commission was interested in. Parks Commission meets at 6 o'clock. I know other communities have been moving their meetings a little bit earlier, just to kind of transition from the workday into the meeting. So totally at the discretion of the Planning Commission, and all of the boards don't have to meet at the same time for the township. So it's really up to the Planning Commission, but I did want to just bring that up as an option. We could start, at the new year, we could really make the change at any point, but.
Any thoughts?
I like 6:30.
I work remotely in the central time zone, so that.
6:30 works for you, okay.
Yeah, I think that would be tight if we moved it up. I mean, I love the idea, but
I like the idea, but I'd like to eat something in between.
that's kind of how I feel too. Like, if I didn't eat, I'd be like hangry.
Okay, so I'm here in 6:30.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
6:30.
Sounds good. Okay, that's all I have, so thank you.
Any other questions for Claire? Okay, moving into meeting minutes of September 2nd.
It was a lot to go through, so I would just say thank you, Anne, for your diligent meeting, for your diligent minutes. I know that took quite a bit of time.
Okay, I'll move to accept the minutes of September 2nd, 2025.
Support.
Thank you. Get a motion by Paul, seconded by Renee for approval of the meeting minutes from September 2nd. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next up is a presentation by Nicole on FOIA and both OMA, whatever OMA basics are. You'll have to help us out there, but turn it over to you.
So Claire and Beth have asked me to kind of go over the basics of FOIA, which is the Freedom of Information Act, and the OMA, which is the Open Meetings Act
There, thank you.
for Michigan. This is a very, very, very broad overview of both of those topics. We had a presentation conference for our Up North clients that Bill was able to go, the zoning administrator, and Taylor to go to up in Petoskey, and we had one of our attorneys present on these two topics. He did the Open Meetings Act for about 45 minutes and FOIA for probably an hour and a half. So this is just very broad strokes. I can start with FOIA first, just because it's going to be less, you don't, for your presentation, for the boards, Planning Commission, ZBA, the Township Board, you don't have to get too much in the nitty-gritty for the FOIA, because that's what you have staff for. Your job for FOIA is to basically check your emails every day, please. Check them every day, because someone from the public might ask Daniel to, I want to FOIA the minutes. I want to request the minutes of the Planning Commission, because you're the Planning Commission chair. They might ask you that. Technically, you're not the FOIA coordinator, but if you get that email, then once it's received in your inbox, the time starts ticking. FOIA has a very short shot clock to get the responses to the person requesting it. It's 5 business days. With email, technically you receive it, you start the counting on the next business day. So if you receive it on a Monday, you start the clock on Tuesday, so you have 6 days for email. That's if it's in the junk stuff. So check your emails. That's my biggest thing. Check your emails for those requests. Get them to your FOIA coordinator. Right now, that's Sue, the clerk. I think that might be changing in the future, but the Township Board can change that and will let you know. Talk to your staff. You have good zoning staff here that they can point you in the right direction, say, hey, I got this email, I think it's a FOIA request, like, okay, send it to this person. They'll let you know that. You forward it to that person so we can start the ball rolling and talk to the public and get them that information that they need, okay? For FOIA, the biggest issues are basically timing for violations and such. When you can be brought to court for a FOIA violation, but because the timing is so tight, that's one of the main ones why you're getting violated. Another one is because you didn't look in your records. You all have township emails. Those are all FOIAble documents, okay? If you text about FOIA or text about a township issue, that text message on your phone, whether it's a personal phone or a township phone, is FOIAble. Okay? So you have to make sure if someone comes in and says, I want all of the documents related to, I don't know, the bluegrass, okay? And you guys have been texting with Claire saying, I don't like the bluegrass, or, I like the bluegrass, we can do that. Those text messages are FOIAble, okay? Texting, emails, sometimes even notes. If you're, for an example, we had a client redoing their zoning ordinance, and they're taking notes so they can talk to their commission, their board about what they want to deal with the zoning ordinance. Those notes are foiable because it's a work product for the township, meant to disseminate information. Personal notes that maybe you're taking tonight for my presentation may not be. I like to err on the side of everything written down and kept for a certain period of time. If it's kept, it's foiable. If it's written down, it's foiable. It's a good habit to get into. That way you're not writing things like, oh, this person is dumb, why is this person presenting, things like that, okay? Because technically, if you have that mindset where everything is going to be foiable, you're going to be presenting your best self. You're going to be presenting the township's best self. So that's my advice, I guess. Notes like, Nicole called for you, please call her back, and I give it to Claire. Claire gets it, makes the phone call, throws it away. Obviously, once it's thrown away, it's trash. It's not a document anymore. You're not destroying, you don't have to keep transient things like that for notes. If you have a FOIA request for that, if you have a litigation, and it's related to that, it might be good to keep, okay? There are things for FOIA called subscriptions. And so, or if you're in a litigation because they don't like something that the township did and they want everything related to that, you have to be more cognizant of what you're keeping and what you're not. But notes, because someone called, someone wants to meet you at a certain time and you've done that, you've checked it off your list, you don't have to keep those, generally speaking, okay? That's kind of what you guys need to know about FOIA. There's other things in it, obviously, FOIA fees, appeals, denials, all of that stuff. We can get into that, but then we'll be here for 2.5 hours. I don't know, do you guys have any questions thus far regarding FOIA?
Go ahead. So our emails from the township, are they published?
No, they're not published, but they're a public document.
No, I mean our email addresses, my apologies.
Oh, that, I don't
can
know.
speak to
Yeah.
that. So we don't publish each of your individual email addresses because people can email directly PLC. So generally, what you guys receive is something that goes to plc@eastbaytwp.org. So anytime we get a FOIA request, staff will, because we're also receive those, we will make sure all of those get disseminated to the individual that's requesting that information. The issue is if you received anything personal, just to yourself. Because we've taken that away, you receive very little. So if someone knew your email address and got in touch with you, I think you'll recall maybe like a month or so ago, Sue got in touch with all the planning commissioners and said, hey, we have this FOIA. If you have anything that wasn't sent to PLC, please make sure you get that to me. So that's a great question, and we don't currently have your individual email addresses on the website.
How long before we erase our emails? How long do we have, and what does that mean?
So the township should have a retention schedule, and if they don't have like a township retention schedule, you'll keep the retention schedule from the Great Seal, I think it is, for the state. And so transient emails, it really depends. I guess to the basic answer, it depends on how long, it depends on what the email is about. If you receive an email asking about the weather, that's a transient email, you don't need to keep it, Claire emails you about a meeting, once the meeting is passed, you don't necessarily need to keep it. Technically, if you have something that's related to a site plan review, a special use permit, meeting minutes, things like that, you should keep it for longer periods of time. But
Well, how long?
It depends on what the retention schedule is. I don't know that off the top of my head. I'm sorry. We can look into that, but the township should have a policy on how long to keep certain emails, whether it's a township-directed retention schedule, and this goes for all documents, whether it's a township-directed retention schedule for documents, or whether it's the one from the state where they follow. So I can't tell you that. Some of them, I know, like meeting minutes, you have to keep forever, okay? Those are kept in the township clerk's office forever. You know, ordinances you have to keep forever. Emails they're hard to explain because it depends on the nature of the email. So I can't give you a straight answer on how long to keep them. It would probably be better to keep them than not. And the township can, like Claire and the township staff can look into their retention schedule and let you know that.
Yeah, we can definitely look into that. We, as staff, our policy is just don't delete any emails. And that's kind of how we've operated. We work with VC3, with our IT is able to basically retain emails long-term, and so we do pay for that. So, but I can get back with you. I would say just don't delete your emails would be my recommendation, but I can find out more information on that.
So my note package, or my notes that I'm writing during the meeting, how long do I need to keep those?
It would be the same answer, because I don't know the retention schedules off the top of my head. That's a retention schedule issue that there's set out, packets, agendas, all of that is going to be set out in that schedule. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we retain all of the packet information, everything like that. With your personal notes, I would say those are more transient in nature. If you have them available when a FOIA request comes in, then you could provide them. If you've discarded them, then I think that would be fine, too.
Does that rule hold whether you're still active board member or retired?
Question.
Yes.
I was going to say yes. If you are no longer on the board, my suggestion to you is to give all of your township stuff, whether it's emails or anything, back to the township. If you don't need them, you don't have to keep them. So all township materials should be returned to the township.
And we do have access to emails through VC3, so we can query emails that were sent or received from previous planning commissioners as well as previous staff. Those are all records that are available to the township that we can work with our IT provider to retain.
That's also a good idea, because that way you're not using your personal emails or anything else. You're using township emails, so the township has access to them when you are no longer here for whatever reason. So just be cognizant of that to make sure you're using township emails if you're emailing back and forth regarding township issues. Okay. Anybody else have
All right.
for FOIA?
Any questions?
All right. So now we'll talk about Open Meetings Act. This applies to every board, commission, committee, subcommittee, I mean, everything that the township governing body, okay? The Open Meetings Act basically states that all decisions, all meetings are going to be open to the public, and so you can deliberate in front of the public to have transparency in government. So you're not doing these closed-door deals type things. All decisions need to be made in an open meeting. If you have a quorum of the public body, then, it's basically a meeting if you're talking about township business. So that's why we always like to say, let's see, 2, 4, 6, you have 7 now, so 4 people is a quorum of the planning commission. Okay, so 4 people out at a bar talking about township business, that's a meeting, okay? So you want to make sure that if you are gathered for whatever reason, you're not talking about township business. It's better to be cognizant of that now than to violate the Open Meetings Act. Violations of the Open Meetings Act, if you have done so, can be a criminal penalty, criminal misdemeanor. The public official who intentionally violates the act will be personally liable for civil action and damages, okay? And it could potentially be a criminal violation. So if you look at MCL 15272, it's a public official who intentionally violates this act is guilty of a misdemeanor, punishable by a fine not more than $1,000. If you do it a second time during your term, then you're guilty of a misdemeanor, shall not be fined more than $2,000, or in prison for not more than a year, or both. So there's some serious penalties for violating the Open Meetings Act, okay? So don't even, I don't even like to tell people that it's okay. I like to have them be very cautious about Open Meetings Acts, okay? I would like them to over-notice things. I like them to make sure that the notices are correct, that you have a quorum, that you're open to the public, that you're deliberating, that you're making the decisions, okay, in an open meeting in front of the public, in front of your constituents, in front of your residents, so you guys are not violating that. There are very limited circumstances where you can go into closed meetings. Generally, we would ask, if you're looking to go into closed meeting, your staff will ask us, like, hey, can we discuss this in a closed meeting? Like, there are certain exceptions, or there are certain enumerated reasons why you can go into closed meetings under the Open Meetings Act. One is to consider property, purchase of property or lease option. You can consult with your attorney during a trial, so you can, obviously talk about strategy and stuff. That's a closed meeting. There's also to consider exempt material from discussion. And this is an example, because a written legal opinion from your attorney is exempt from FOIA. It's also exempt and a reason to go into closed session. So if I give you a written opinion about why you should be doing something or should not be doing something, we can go into closed session to discuss that. But no decision can be made in the closed session. So you would have to go, in order to go into a closed session, you have to have a 2/3 majority roll call vote to go into closed session. And then you can go into closed session, mics will go off, we'll go into a separate room, however you guys want to do that. We'll talk about whatever we need to talk about. Then there'll be a consensus to come out of closed session, because technically you can't make a decision in closed session, so you can't take a vote, but we can say, okay, we're done, we can come back into open session, and then we can make a decision out in open session, okay? There are rules and requirements for meetings, schedule changes, special meetings, and those require notices and everything. At the beginning of every year, you guys remember you set out your meeting dates for the year and the times and when it is. That's part of the Open Meetings Act. Okay, so if you want to make a change, like we had suggested, you'd have to make that change, and then you have to repost that according to the Open Meetings Act. If you want a special meeting, you have to give at least 18 hours notice about that special meeting and what the reasons for it are. And a lot of times your staff will handle that. They know how to handle that. The main thing is you have to make sure it's open and accessible to the public. There are certain, I'm not even going to say that, because there are certain areas where you can go into like a residential dwelling to have a meeting. I suggest not doing that ever. I mean, you have a nice hall. You can have it outside if you need to, if there's too many people to fit, in the chairs, or you can find a different, bigger venue. But you want to make sure that it's going to be handicap accessible, ADA compliant. People can hear, that's why we have the microphones, so we're amplifying. And then there's requirements for minutes, draft minutes that have to be posted. When the minutes are approved, they have to be posted within a certain time. The closed meeting minutes, so the closed meeting minutes are separate from the open meeting minutes, and they have to be approved by you guys, but they're not posted anywhere because they're confidential, they're closed session, and the clerk will have to keep those for a year and a day before they can get rid of them. The main issues with open meetings are round-robin use of telephones, text messages, emails. Reply all is the bane of Open Meeting Act, okay? Claire can give you a piece of information, email it to you, okay? And say, okay, meetings at this time, it's going to be about, the new FOIA coordinator, okay? And then, Carl replies all, says, I don't want this person as the FOIA coordinator. Well, then, Rhonda, you reply all and say, well, I do. Well, now you're deliberating via email, okay? So don't reply all. You can reply to Claire, ask, telling her your issues or whatever, or anything like that, but don't reply all. Same goes with text messages, same goes for telephone calls. You don't want to be perceived as deliberating outside of the open meeting, okay? You want to be able to have that frank discussion in front of everybody, so you're going to be, in compliance, and so your constituents, your residents, can see how their government works, okay? You guys have any questions so far? Anybody?
Just one. You mentioned about the decisions have to be made in the open meeting.
Yep.
What about a very sensitive personnel issue?
So there are personnel requirements okay, for example, you're going to have Claire up on a review, and it's a disciplinary review for whatever reason. She can request to go into closed session. You, as a board member, cannot. So it's up to her. So it's up to the employee to go into closed session to request that. Otherwise, you have to discuss that review process, in open meetings. That's how it's worded under the statute.
So if you had a situation, hypothetically, that we found or considered something to be of a fraudulent nature, and, obviously the treasurer is on the hot seat. So you're saying that in a meeting dealing with the fraud, you cannot go into closed session unless the treasurer or that person requests to do so?
The employee can request the closed session, yes.
Okay, so now you go in the closed session and go through the whole thing. Make a determination that they're guilty. You have to come out of the closed session, go into open session and say, we're going to fire so-and-so.
Yep. That's the motion. I mean, you can't make a motion or decision in closed session. So you would say, based on our closed session conversation, whether it's with your attorney or whoever, we're making this decision. So that's, and there are certain, under the Open Meetings Act, there are certain things that you can go into closed session for, like review performances, disciplinary. You can, if it's criminal in nature, things like that, you can go into closed session for, depending on what it is, but you have to use one of those enumerated reasons. You can't just go into closed session because you feel like it. So even though it might be uncomfortable because it's a tough topic, you have to discuss it in open session unless you can find a reason to go into closed session. And the statutory site for a closed session is 15.268, and it goes from, I think, A to like double something, double A, there's quite a few. A lot of them don't apply. Some of them are dealing with school boards. Some of them are dealing with the state legislature. But there are a lot that would apply to the township, okay? Obviously, the planning commission itself wouldn't have to necessarily do a lot of closed session stuff unless you're talking to your attorney. But the township board would be dealing with a lot of the employment issues and stuff like that, and they would have to go through that. You can always call us. In fact, we would, if you're thinking about going into closed session, have one of your staff or the supervisor call us and ask us, hey, can we go into closed session for this? And we can generally tell you yes, no, maybe if you want to, okay? So that's up to you. I've had clients in the past where I give them a written opinion, they don't want to go into closed session. They want to be able to discuss that, in front of everybody. So you don't have to go into closed session. It's an option for the township, so. But there are certain things where the option is taken out of the township hands, mainly for employee reviews, for employment matters, so. Anybody else have any questions? Is that, okay? Do you have, I mean, that's really all I have for the broad strokes of those two, so,
Well, thank you for the time. We appreciate it.
yep,
It's good to get a shock, a reminder.
yes.
Right?
There is one more thing with the Open Meetings Act, and it deals with talking to the public kind of one-on-one. Just remember that you are one voice on a board of 7 of, I don't know how many the ZBA has, I think 5 maybe. And the township board, I think, has 7. So you're one voice. You can't tell the resident, yes, we're going to do that, or no, we're not going to do that. You have to, the residents are going to try to talk to you. You can say, okay, that's, thank you for letting me know. You should, disseminate that information to everybody on the township, or on the board. That way, everybody has that information, and you then can use that information as a deliberation during an open meeting. That way, everyone is, that's what public comment is for. That's why you have it on your agenda twice. That's why people can email and have correspondence with you. But that means everybody on the board, everybody on the committee gets it, basically. And then you can use that as a basis for your discussion in an open meeting. Okay?
So when we were talking about a recent project, I had a concerned citizen email me and request that I go to their house and have a conversation with them. And again, in their private residence, they asked me to invite the rest of the planning commission with them. And I responded that I could not do that. That was a violation of the Open Meetings Act, yada, yada, yada. But my question is when I responded, should I have blind CC'd the PLC to tell everybody else that I'm communicating with this person and I'm saying, I can't do that?
At least with staff, so staff can disseminate that information. You don't want to be seen as making decisions for the planning commission because you're one voice. Does that make sense? Even though it might have been the correct answer because of the Open Meetings Act and the constraints on that for open and accessibility and stuff. But you don't want to have a different resident come in and say, well, now you're making decisions for the planning commission. You didn't make a decision, and that decision was made in an open meeting. So now, does that make sense? You're being perceived as, it's almost like the perceived conflict of interest. You don't really have a conflict, but you're perceived as such. So you want to make sure that you're not being perceived as violating the Open Meetings Act, because that just makes your residents dig deeper and then actually possibly maybe find a violation, okay? And with the penalties being so strict with this, I wouldn't even want to chance it. I mean, if I was on a board, I wouldn't want to chance it like that. So if you're having that communication and they're asking that, technically the commission members aren't the ones that set the meetings. You have a schedule of meetings that you have. You can have special meetings, but I believe under your bylaws, it has to have, 3 people call a special meeting, or 4 people call a special meeting, or the chair to call a special meeting. So, you have those processes in place. So even if that resident wanted to have that special meeting at their house, it should have gone to staff so they could disseminate it to the planning commission to see if other people would have wanted to have a special meeting there. That type of thing.
I believe that the email came to me as A, I'm the only one with a published email address, but B, because I'm the trustee that's on the planning commission.
Yep.
And I believe that staff was CC'd on my response.
Okay. That, I obviously don't know. But that's, you know, you want to make sure that because you're not the chair, you're not the vice chair, I don't think, are you?
I'm not allowed to be.
Okay.
She says it with a smile. She was.
I was. Not allowed. We decided I'm not allowed to be, so I
Let
can't.
me attack that question from a different way. I'm over in Olson's, walking down the aisle, and somebody that is involved with some issue comes up to me and right then and there says, I want you to know this, and this. Sensitive information, but pertinent. All right, thank you, I'm in Olson's. But they say, whatever you do, don't let anybody know it came from me. So now, I'm back here, I need to inform the other members that a conversation was had, but how do you do that without outing the person?
Right. You ask them to write an anonymous letter. You mean, that's the main form of communication to the boards, is either, you know, you don't have to do it by mail, but email, dropping a written note off at the township hall to get to you guys. There are ways to do that. And if it was me, I wouldn't trust my memory to say, okay, I had this conversation with these 4 points, but what if I get them misconstrued? So I would let the resident know that, say, I don't want to misconstrue what you're telling me. Please write it down. That way I can give it to the planning commission. We can discuss it. Okay, if you want to remain anonymous, you can sign it anonymous, and we can still disseminate it to the planning commission, so they would have that information coming from your mouth. So I'm not, I'm not being the messenger, misconstruing what you're trying to tell me. You have to be kind of sensitive that way about it.
But am I under obligation to report to the board that I had that conversation and addressed it as to write an anonymous letter?
Yeah, I would. I would say, hey, you could do it under correspondence or under your correspondence or member comment in your agenda saying, I did have this conversation. I asked them to write a anonymous letter because, I don't want to misconstrue what they told me and leave it at that. And the township could even adopt a policy where, if that's happening quite a bit, you have a script where the commissioners would say, thank you for letting me know this is a serious matter, but it needs to be coming from you in writing so I can disseminate it through the board.
Okay, but the person would remain anonymous.
They can remain, they don't have to sign it if they don't want to. No one.
Well, I'm talking about my report. In other words, I met Joe Jones, and should I be revealing Joe Jones' name? Just say I met someone.
No,
Say a
say
resident.
A resident,
Say a resident.
fine.
Because if they're writing it, they don't technically have to sign their name. But if they don't sign their name, the township also doesn't have to respond to it. So, there's a double-edged sword there a little bit. But we want to make sure that you're not, and this is where I come from, I don't want you as a commissioner to accidentally misconstrue what they're telling you either. And I wouldn't think you'd want that either. So that's why I want to default to say, hey, thank you for telling me. I appreciate you coming up to me and telling me. I know we live in a small town, but please write it down so it's not going to be misconstrued, because I'll try to tell the board what we talked about, but, the meeting's in 2 weeks. I have a ton of stuff between now and 2 weeks from now on my mind. I might misconstrue or forget something important that you think is important to tell me. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So,
But never. I'd always remember.
Maybe the place to do it is conflict of interest, right? Like right out of the blocks. We've already got it on our agenda.
well, it wouldn't be a conflict of interest. He's more reporting on a converse.
Perceived conflict of interest.
No.
It still wouldn't be conflict of interest. Let me look. It could be a public comment.
I was trying to think where in the agenda we would disclose such a thing.
Correspondence.
Yeah, you could do correspondence or public comment if you want. I would probably do it at public comment because it would be part of a public comment. If they were here, they'd be public comment, but you could also save it to the end. A lot of times, they will have the second public comment, it would be public comment / member comment, and then it would be member comment, and you would have that area as well to report.
I had an example where a neighbor texted me and wanted some further information and wanted me to evaluate a situation with them, I would call it. And, I just said, you're welcome to call Claire, set up a meeting, write an email.
Yep.
And then I brought it into Claire and asked her to read over it. And,
Yep.
I had to say it multiple times so they would get it.
Yep.
But I do love the idea of a script.
Yep.
So
It-
we can
some-
have a copy and paste response.
Sometimes it's easier to have a script, and then you can also default to township policy. So you're not making, because you guys as planning commission members and even board members aren't the ones that are tasked with dealing with that issue at the start. That's what staff is for. And then it comes up to you to either review or to, if they don't like the decision, they can appeal the decision to the board and things like that. So you want to make sure that you're going to be, as you're sitting in these seats, impartial and, not, so that they don't feel like they have someone in their corner, because you have to make sure that you're deliberating in the open meeting and not have your mind made up already. Okay?
All right. Well, thank you again. You might stick around if you'd like. We've got some pretty hostile crowd this evening.
I already gave her.
All right. Thank you again, Nicole.
I will work with Nicole to get a script out. I think that's a good idea. So thank you for that. Thank
Sounds
you for the
good.
presentation.
Thanks again.
Have a good night, guys.
Thank
you. You too.
All right, next up is zoning amendment 4-25, temporary dwelling units. And I think before we open the public hearing, I'll kick it over to Claire to kind of update us on the alterations that were made.
Okay, so this has been before you several times. And just to summarize, as you are all aware, in the current zoning ordinance, we do not allow temporary dwellings. So this is a new ordinance that would allow for people to camp on private residential properties for up to 10 consecutive days and 45 days in a calendar year. It would allow for one temporary dwelling unit to be on a parcel of 1 acre in size or less, and up to 4 temporary dwelling units if the parcel is 4 units or is 4 acres or more. So it's 1 per acre up to 4, with a maximum of 4. That includes any residential storage as well. We will continue to not allow any type of short-term rentals in these or any type of commercial use. So we'll continue to monitor that through our GovOS platform. We are not allowing temporary dwelling units in any type of environmentally sensitive area. So it has to be outside a wetland buffer, waterfront setback, steep slopes, those types of things. All waste has to be properly disposed of. And we also have a mechanism in place that allows for a permit for up to 180 days if you are building your home, new construction, repairing damage from a fire, or other natural disasters. So that's kind of the meat of the ordinance that you're reviewing. You have the option tonight to recommend it to the township board for approval. They would have to then introduce it, and then at a subsequent meeting, they would have the opportunity to adopt it. So in terms of from the last meeting, the changes that were made, we clarified the definition of temporary dwelling units to specify that backyard tree houses and tents, as described in the definition, are not regulated under the zoning ordinance. So that was a clarification that Mindy was looking for, just to make sure that it wasn't construed that they were, if they were not defined, that they were, or that they were not explicitly noted that they were not permitted. We amended the final sentence of section 4.36B2 to clarify that the storage, so clarifying that it shall not result in exterior storage or use of more than a combined total of 4 recreational vehicles. And then we also clarified that seasonal farm laborers need to be housed on a working farm in compliance with GAMPS. So happy to answer any questions on that, but that was kind of the draft that I believe we came away with after our August meeting.
Feels about right. Any questions for Claire?
I just have one quick one, because I'm not reading what I thought I heard. Didn't you say up to 1 acre? How did you?
Yes.
I'm reading this as 2 acres. In number 2, it says,
So
for parcels at least 2 acres in size.
So if it's one, it's basically 1 per acre. So you would need at least 2 acres to have 2 temporary dwelling units. You would need at least 3 acres to have 3 temporary dwelling units. So if it's 2 acres or less, you can only have 1. I mean, if it's less than 2 acres.
Okay.
Does that make sense? If it's 1.9 acres, you can have 1 temporary dwelling unit. If it's 2 acres, you can have 2.
But if it was 20 acres, you can only have a max
4.
of 4.
Yep.
I don't know, just the
And
way
we're
it was
going to count
worded.
what's in storage.
But it was-
Because you got to read the first sentence before
I
you read
I
the
did. I've read it a couple times. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I get where that's a little confusing.
Just a little bit. I mean, the way you said it and the way I read it didn't coincide. But, okay.
Okay, if no other questions, then we'll open up the public hearing, and then maybe we'll come back. So with that being said, we'll open the public hearing at 7:22. Any public comment on this matter? Okay. We'll close the public hearing at 7:22 and 30 seconds. Bring it back to the commission for consideration. And again, this is a recommendation to the township board.
For one, I'm ready to put this one to bed. I think we've beat this dead horse. And I think it's good. I mean, it's a huge improvement from where we were at, so.
Yeah.
I think it's a happy medium.
Yep. Not everyone's going to be happy, but it's better than where we were at, so,
It's a medium.
right?
We've made it this far without an ordinance.
Right.
And I think the fact that we can never go back.
Right.
I think that weighs heavily on us, that this will be our legacy. I just truly wish that there were some sort of a record mechanism, like an electronic system like the DNR has. It just doesn't exist for townships, but we've talked about that, just to know who's where and for how long, because it's going to be hard.
Well, I'll make a motion to move the zoning amendment 425 temporary dwelling units to the township board for their review and action.
Support.
Thank you. We have a motion by Paul, seconded by Steve, for recommendation to the Township Board for their consideration under ZA 4-25. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Okay.
I think I know, but Ann, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Let's see, Gonzalez,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Walters,
No.
Wassam,
No.
Leonard,
Yes.
Edley,
Yes.
and Ferguson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Appreciate the debate and all the clarity that's gone into this. It's been a long one coming. but more to come with the township board as well. And that'll probably be for which month, do you think, Claire?
We're planning to introduce it at the October meeting, so next week, Monday night, but it wouldn't be adopted. The earliest that it could be adopted would be November. And I will mention, Mindy is representative on the township board. She can speak to kind of the deliberation and discussion, but oftentimes if there's a split vote, there will be, I would give you the option if you wanted to have another planning commissioner attend that meeting, just to provide that perspective.
Sounds good. Okay, next up under 9C is zoning amendment 5-25 impervious definition. Back to Claire.
Okay, so this was this was kind of precipitated by the fact that the way that our ordinance defined impervious area really limited what an applicant could do, and just with the emerging technology of permeable paver systems, and again, not just putting pavers on the ground, but really putting in those systems that are, multiple feet deep, that have the, peat gravel that is drainable. We felt in working with our township engineer that we could clarify the definition of impervious area to carve out an opportunity for property owners, specifically on some of those small lots that we're seeing that are having a lot of challenges with meeting the impervious surface limitations, because we limit it to 20% impervious for the parcel, to give them opportunity for a little bit more creativity and design. It's more expensive, but it does facilitate that stormwater management on site, and we feel that that would be a good option. So really with this amendment, we are amending the definition of impervious area to specifically allow for permeable pavement systems that are with a design approved by the township and include regular maintenance. And then we are also amending the definition of stormwater, and that's really to clarify that every site needs to control stormwater runoff, not just the sites that require a stormwater permit, because we have many sites, even some of our commercial sites, where the alteration that they're making results in a net decrease in impervious surface, even though it's a complete reconstruction. They're not required to get a stormwater permit, but we still want to make sure that they are managing stormwater on site. So that just gives the township a little bit more flexibility in ensuring that.
Sure. Any questions for Claire? Okay, hearing none, we will open the public hearing at 7:28. Any public comment on the matter? Okay. We will close the public hearing at 7:28 in 15 seconds. And we'll bring it back to the commission for consideration or a motion.
I'll make a motion that we move forward the zoning amendment 5-25 impervious area and stormwater to the township board for approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Renee, seconded by Carl, for recommended consideration to the township board at the next scheduled meeting for zoning amendments 5-25. All's in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
I have a text change to it, though. Stormwater is sometimes two words and sometimes one word. Can we make them all the same?
Yes, and thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Okay, next up in the last public hearing for the evening is zoning amendment 6-25 accessory dwelling units. Back to Claire.
Just make a note of that.
I don't care which one you use, just make them the same.
I think I have to be consistent with how our engineers write it, so. Okay, so this last one is for accessory dwelling units. We had discussed, I think this was really precipitated by an applicant that came in. He owned like a 1.5, maybe 2 acre parcel in the lakes area, was interested in he actually had a kind of a granny flat, but was not allowed to utilize it, but was interested in having his, I believe, son and daughter-in-law come back and live there, wanted to see if there was any opportunity for an ADU. And so, in talking through that, it did seem to make sense that if we allowed ADUs in the environmentally sensitive areas, the lakes area, the natural area, the Boardman River, but just ensured that they met the minimum lot size and dimension requirements, that could kind of address some of the concerns that really had been voiced throughout the zoning ordinance rewrite process. I would say, we have a lot of little postage stamp size parcels all throughout the lakes area. Those are like 0.1 acres, much, much smaller than what our minimum dwelling size are, and would really result in densities much higher than really what we want to see in that area and what septic systems can reasonably maintain. So I'm really comfortable with this ordinance amendment, just because any new ADU would also go through Grand Traverse County Health Department to ensure the septic system was sized appropriately for, 2 dwelling units. So I do think that this kind of gets to, allowing that aging in place, allowing for a little bit more flexibility in housing throughout the entire township, while still protecting environmentally sensitive areas.
Any questions for Claire?
I do. I have one, but it's kind of on the left field.
Let's hear it.
Get ready. Under this proposal, these short-term rentals licenses may not be issued for an accessory dwelling unit. Okay, we agree. However, my question is, in the calculation that we make for short-term rentals, which is 3%, I believe, of the total, would these not, and I prefer not, but would these be counted in the numerator?
That's a good question. We worked closely with assessing at the time to identify the number of housing units, and I think they would be counted as housing units. But again, I would clarify that the number of accessory dwelling units that we have is less than 5 total.
I appreciate that, but I'm saying, once again, I'm looking down the road as to what this can be, and this goes everything from, 1,000 square feet, which is not fine, to 250. So now you've got, a number of different phone booths established, but their number weight-wise is the same as, a 4,000 square foot residence. So I'm just saying, is this something that we should look into a little bit more as to whether or not that would be included in the overall count that would allow for an increase in?
Yeah,
given
we can certainly look at how we want to count the number of dwelling units in the future. I think you'll see the huge change that we're seeing is the, 200-unit multifamily developments that are also much smaller compared to, a 4,000 square foot home. So I think that that's a policy issue that we should definitely reevaluate with the township board. I would say that the cap was based on the number of dwelling units. I think we ended up settling on 2.5%.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
And that 2.5% is not a hard and fast rule. It's something that the township has an opportunity to reevaluate in the future as, as we, consider maybe changing the cap. The township board would also have the option to keep the cap at 145?
46, I thought, but hey.
145, I believe,
That's
in
fine.
perpetuity. So it doesn't necessarily need to increase the cap as our dwelling units
All
increase.
right, I'm just saying that in the analysis of this thing, when you get up to that particular point, let's pay attention to
Okay.
this.
Yep, thank you. And I will say that I think Mindy or someone had a good point at the last meeting to just note that we allow, just to clarify that a short-term rental cannot be in an accessory dwelling unit or its corresponding principal unit. So that was the other change that I made in this ordinance. That was a good point.
Agree to that. Thank you, Mindy.
I think it was Mindy.
I don't remember.
Okay, with that, we will then take it back to the public for one more run. We'll open the public hearing at 7:35. And we will close the public hearing at 7:35 and 10 seconds. We're getting faster. And we'll bring it back to the commission for deliberation.
That being said, I'll move to accept zoning amendment 625, accessory dwelling units for transmittal to the township board for their action and process.
Support.
Thank you. We have a motion by Paul, seconded by Steve for recommending ZA 6-25 to the township board for their consideration and action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Last up is a new one that pertains to steep slopes. And Claire, I'm going to have you set the table for us for this discussion.
Okay. So as you'll recall, I believe in July, we brought this in front of you and really highlighted the fact that right now our definition of steep slopes is 15%. And it was causing some challenges just because we have a lot of slopes that hit that threshold. And it was causing a lot of additional, basically our ordinance required kind of geotechnical analysis to ensure that that slope was suitable for development. So it required soil borings, thousands of dollars. And the result was always, yes, you can build on it. So we were finding that it was causing homeowners significantly more money to ensure that it was a buildable slope, while not necessarily protecting the environment or resulting in any change in terms of development patterns. So we reached out to our township engineer, to our county drain commissioner, to geotechnical engineer professionals, to the Watershed Center, to a number of different, to soil erosion control with Grand Traverse County, to a number of different experts in the field. And really what we heard back was that kind of a more appropriate threshold would be 20 to 25%, all the way up to 33%. And so I think the last time the Planning Commission discussed this, you were comfortable with kind of bumping it up to 25%. One benefit with the 25% was that the USDA has a web soil survey, and the category goes to 25%, and so we can see what's over 25%, what's under 25%. Generally, we still need a site-specific survey, but it kind of gives us an idea, parcel by parcel, whether or not those are exceeding that 25%. You also recommended drafting some language for a two-tiered system. So we have steep slopes and very steep slopes, and you'll see this draft ordinance. We worked with the township engineer to develop some draft language, and we also based it loosely on the Benzonia Village regulations, which I think Paul and a few other commissioners appreciated that approach. So you'll see we have a draft ordinance in front of you. A couple items that just came up since I sent out the packet. One was Greg Huerta, who's a developer and had kind of attended a number of these meetings, was interested in us reevaluating the steep slopes. He reviewed it. He was generally happy with the language we came up with. He did recommend, instead of requiring that we replant everything within 3 days after completion of grading, he said, can you bump that a little bit more? He said 14 days. Maybe we could, so that's up for discussion. He had concerns about just like weather, weather, availability of crews, those types of things. But there is a desire to make sure you get it planted and stabilized as quickly as possible. And then Heather Smith with the Watershed Center also sent in some comments and recommendations. I didn't give you a copy of that, Mindy, so here it is. She had 3 different recommendations that were kind of more, smaller edits and clerical. The first 3, I think, make a ton of sense. Defining disturbance we can do, making sure that permanent vegetation is planted on any exposed area, also clarifying that 25% threshold. The last comment, just expanding the vegetative buffer for steep slopes to include like a setback that's 100 feet as opposed to the 50 feet that we generally have in the lakes area. I think that would be problematic, just because we have, this issue is in the lakes area. We have a ton of non-conforming lots, so to require a 100-foot setback instead of a 50-foot setback, I think would be very problematic. And yes, it probably would be best practice, but just given our existing development pattern and all of the homes that are already closer than 50 feet to the water, plus the lots that are, just already platted and not conducive to that 100-foot setback, I would say is probably would be a policy decision that would create a lot of variance requests. So, happy to answer questions.
Yeah, I was going
but-
to say, this feels very similar to what we discussed, and, to be honest with you, I'm pretty comfortable with making some of those adjustments, or all of them except for that last one, honestly, with what Heather had come up with.
I do feel like the 3-day window is kind of short, because, this is northern Michigan. So
I would agree with
expanding that would, I think, be beneficial. I don't know, 14 days doesn't seem
I
unreasonable.
think getting something planted, you would have to have guaranteed crew showing up the next day, the landscaping crew, when one person leaves. It seems pretty tight to me.
7 days, or?
I like 7.
I'm fine
Because
with,
they're going to have everything pre-ordered, right? They're just waiting for installation. So I agree 3 short, but 7. We don't want it sitting there barren for so long that it's just going to wash away either.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of this.
I'm fine with 7.
Given my background, 14 days really isn't that long when you come and consider working days. I'd think maybe 10 would be all right with, but, weeks can fly by. Weather can really delay people in coordination, especially on a decent-sized project. Time flies by.
I agree, I work for a builder. I see the delays all the time, and it's nothing for something to get delayed all of a week. So if that happens and it pushes everything back, now they're going to be out of compliance. I would say minimum 10 days.
10 is fine.
I'm okay with 10.
I think we should look at the Michigan Stormwater Ordinance, which I'm trying to do right now, but it's not coming up. Because I think it's in there.
See what they reference and be consistent?
Yes.
We can certainly do that. So I'll keep 10 in mind, and I'll take a look at the Michigan.
And I'm fine with that, as long as we stay the same. I don't want to, I want to stay with them or make it shorter, right? I don't want to go past theirs, so
That's a good
I think
idea.
we should just go with the state.
Can you send me a link when you get a chance? I'm sure I can find it. Sure. Thank you.
If you text me tomorrow.
Okay. Deal.
Is that okay to do that? I'm so confused.
When you leave here, don't talk to me.
You guys
I know,
can't hang
just
out.
walk to your car.
I talk to him all the time, it's about hockey though, so.
Luckily, it's not a quorum.
Is everyone generally okay and comfortable with where we're headed, though?
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve zoning amendment 7 dash.
Wait,
We're not, we're
quite
just
there.
discussing it.
Oh, we gotta do
She's going to
public
bring us
comment.
back some official language.
Oh, I
And I
thought we were
also-
approved.
we still have
thought-
to talk about the 4th item that Heather, so that we've got 50 feet, she's recommending 100 because of, those environmentally sensitive areas. And so your point, Claire, with the non-conforming lots, absolutely. But we're also seeing, lots that are just simply digging down, almost 2 stories from the road and building, and it's all sand, and you're constantly seeing it wash out. with storms and stuff. So I think this is a great, item to do. I just worry about how do we help save that runoff from getting into the lakes and streams? Is there anything
Yeah.
tighter we can do in the planting area?
I think the other benefit that we have in our new ordinance under environmentally sensitive areas is you're required to get a grading permit if you're changing the elevation by 3 feet or more, which is really limited. So if you're within an environmentally sensitive area, you need the grading permit. So I think, and that requires, the engineer to get involved as well. So I think that that's another kind of fail-safe for ensuring that. And I think that probably, and in addition, we don't allow retaining walls in the vegetative buffer. So I think over time, we're going to see less modifications of those parcels, just with some of our more strict regulations.
So within that grading permit and the use of the engineer, and then layering on the steep slopes and the changes that we're making above, just trying to think, is there anything further, to do with that fourth comment from Heather? Do we have any other opportunity for improvement? Maybe the answer is no, but I would just want to ask.
Yeah, I think it is a policy decision. I think that if we do increase that setback, like we're already getting so many variance requests, my concern is just that it's gonna amplify the number of variance requests.
Okay, so say we don't, and we leave it at 50, what else can we do to strengthen? Is this what we're considering as strong as we can get, is basically what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think that with the steep slope regulations, even though we're reducing it, it's, we're bumping it up, that threshold to 25%. I think in the areas that are not really that steep, the 15% grade, the fact that we're, ensuring that the alignment of roads and driveways shall follow the natural topography, that any disturbance needs to be, replanted very quickly, that the finished slopes shall not exceed 33% and needs to be stabilized to the satisfaction. So I think that that's kind of that, 15% to 25%, which,
Okay.
talking with engineers, that's really not very steep. We still do have some mechanisms in place to ensure. And then beyond that, we're really not allowing development beyond, in just very minimal circumstances.
Okay, thank you.
Mindy, did you have a motion?
Yeah, do you want it now?
I think we're ready now.
If you want, you can, so I will just say, I'm not going to tell you your motion,
Or
but
did
you're
you-
welcome to schedule it for public hearing with the changes that we've discussed, or also happy to bring it back to the planning commission with edits, so whatever you guys are most comfortable with.
I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing for zoning amendment 7-25, incorporating the comments of Heather Smith, comment 1, 2, and 3 into our public,
Amended language?
yeah, got that. Also, I would like to request that F2B, that the days for planting be changed to either 10 days or that for which is in Part 91 of the Michigan statute. That's it.
Feels right? Is there support?
I'll support.
Okay, we have a motion by Mindy, seconded by Steve for setting a public hearing for zoning amendment 7-25 with the aforementioned adjustments to the text before us this evening. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. And last up is back to Claire for review and comments of the Blair Township Draft Master Plan.
Okay. And the other correspondence I forgot to highlight too, I apologize, is that Garfield Township is updating their master plan, you saw. But Garfield Township, or Blair Township has sent out a draft of their master plan. I did link it in the packet, so you can click on that link if you want to see a copy of their draft master plan. It's out for a 63-day public review period. Networks Northwest drafted it for them. I think they did overall, they did a nice job with the draft. Blair Township has really seen considerable commercial, residential growth in the last few years. And I think this is a nice opportunity for an adjacent community to be able to take an opportunity to review the master plan and look for, areas where that we're consistent, or if there's any, changes or recommendations that you have for them to their master plan. So I did go through and review the master plan. I played kind of special attention to the southwest border of East Bay Township, which is the border that we share with Garfield, or with Blair Township. I would say in generally, the existing land use and the future land use plan for that area are very consistent. They're very low intensity, low density. It's a mix of very low density rural residential and agriculture, abutting East Bay Township, zoned agriculture, and then Boardman River District. So very consistent in terms of what's there now and kind of what they have planned for their future land use. I would say the inconsistency is how it's zoned right now versus how we're zoned. So their zoning there allows for, they don't have a minimum residential density. So it's basically, there's no limit on the density that can be built there. There's no water and sewer, and from what I can tell, there's really no plans to extend water and sewer. So I would say overall, I think Blair's done a nice job kind of taking stock of their existing land use and have some plans, they're through their master plan, they're saying with their future land use, we don't want high density here, we don't want to extend water and sewer. And I would think that based on that, they're going to change their zoning over time. So that would be my biggest comment, was just that the inconsistency with the zoning, and I'm assuming that that's something that they've identified as well and that they're working towards addressing. I think there's also opportunity to collaborate on some of the trails initiative that we're working on, particularly some trail connections like down in the Boardman Valley area, like dirt trails, as well as just the kind of coordination of preservation of the Boardman River Valley. And I think that was kind of a strong theme in both master plans, is the desire to preserve that corridor along with the Boardman River.
So with no maximum residential density, and I haven't read their zoning, I mean, do they have lot sizes defined? Is it pretty tight?
I think they have a width, like a
Okay,
width.
like we do?
Yeah.
Because
But
they're
it
all going to
would-
be on their own
Septic, yeah.
septic.
And
That's
but
going to
it,
kind of limit the size of the lot. too.
yeah, a little bit. But
Minimum.
I think based on what I looked at with their zoning, they could have pretty high density there. I don't think there's probably a demand for it right now. I think the demand is probably going to be where there's water and sewer.
Interesting.
Any other questions for Claire?
I will probably send a letter to them, letting them know that we reviewed and discussed it. So if anyone has any comments that you want included in the letter, let me know.
Sounds good. Any public comment, round two? Nope, doesn't look like it. And our next meeting is November 4th at 6:30 still. And with that, thanks, everybody. We are adjourned.